All right, we're recording.
Talking about today.
Education of the youth.
Education of the youth, how to make sure our youth are properly educated and that the quality of their education is something that parents and community are aware of, and we know how to get it if we're not getting it.
Hello, everyone out there. This is a segment of our Nicodemus program we have within the church. Our special person tonight will be Sister Martina Berry, mother of many, a songstress in our church, cornerstone of everything that happens in the church. And we're going to approach, our topic would be the education of our youth at their beginning, how important it is and necessary it is for them to be the people we have them to be. So, Sister Martina, in your area of expertise, and in your opinion, education begins at the beginning of birth.
Oh, yes.
How important is that aspect to you?
So foundationally, parents and guardians and everybody that's involved in raising children, we are their first teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So from us, they learn how to speak, they learn how to move, they learn how to react in social situations. So our role is very important. That begins before they have any sort of formal instruction. So it's critical that we educate ourselves and that we are intentional about teaching our children the best way that we know how. And then if we don't have all the tools, then we go seek those tools so that we can do the best we can.
Now, in your opinion, if those foundational aspects of education aren't laid out, quote unquote, properly, the end result of that can be the destruction of a society or an environment or a neighborhood.
Yes, that's the short answer.
Yeah. I'm just looking for you to expound upon it because
in my so when I'm not at church, I'm a school psychologist. So I work in K through 12 schools. Right now, I'm in high school.
We deal with the little ones.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
hallelujah.
And it's interesting how you talk about the impact on society, because you really see when there is not that strong foundation for a child, the emotional effects it has on a child, the social effects, how they're not able to interact with people, don't have any social skills, or when there's trauma in a child's life because of things that have happened at home, how that affects them at school, and then just not having quality education or not being in a good school with good teachers that understand them, how that affects their learning too. And then, they grow up as adults and carry those things on. If we're not careful and we don't pay attention, they carry those things on to adulthood, and it has an impact on society that we see.
It's like a snowball coming out the side of the hill.
Yeah.
It starts up as a little kernel, it rolls down. Whatever it picks up, it's going to take and impact the environment that it's traveling through.
Right.
And when you speak on that and refer back to the African American experience, if you or our children are raised in an environment that's contrary to their nature, contrary to their environment, there's going to be resistance.
Yes.
That resistance, as a result of it being a resistance, is a resistance to that system. If you're resisting that system doesn't care for that, it's going to lock you up or take away some of your rights as a citizen,
Yes.
which is going to prevent you from evolving as the citizen you want to be. How do you address that with young people?
So it's
Where do you cut it
interesting. So you're talking about our incarceration rates here.
Yes.
And we're seeing that same sort of, the word that comes to mind is imprisonment. I know it's harsh, but
That's what it is.
our children, especially at the middle school and high school levels, are black and brown boys. The rates that they're being disciplined harsher. They're being suspended. They're being expelled.
Those go actually marks in their
Right.
cubicles behind
Right.
the charts.
Right. So there's something like a cumulative file. A cumulative file. It shows everything that has happened to you from preschool, if you went to preschool, all the way through your education. That file says everything about you, right? And so I've picked up files with kids, they're super thick. And those are the kids that have been expelled and, they have been suspended and, they've had police involvement, temporary placement outside of the school because the school can say, well, you're not fit to be here because we don't think you fit here or you don't know how to behave here. So we need to send you somewhere else, right?
Yes.
And that is it's a mirrors of incarceration kind of. And just, I feel like we misunderstand our youth a lot of times, or our teachers or administrators, people that are involved in educating youth are not culturally equipped. So they're not sensitive to the needs of that child's culture, or they don't quite understand what they're going through at home, and they don't care to reach them at that level to really understand what's going on. And it's easy to say, you're a problem, let's put you somewhere else. Or maybe you need to be expelled to learn, your lesson.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
Interesting, because after 12 years of preparation, many of our children, black and brown, find themselves in a society that doesn't want to accept how they've come out of that 12 years of preparation because they don't meet a certain standard. Thereby, they turn to the guy or the lady that says, like, you can get toys or you can get things for your mom and your dad if you go out and sell this or sell that.
Yeah.
But that's illegal.
And in a sense, we set them up for failure because a lot of times we don't give them the proper tools. And a lot of times as parents, we don't know what those tools should be, or we don't know how to go get the thing to resolve the issue. And schools don't really tell us either. They're like gatekeepers kind of sometimes, and they don't let you know what's available.
Because we as parents have gone through the identical system pretty much, and what it had tried to do, and still doing, but tried very hard. Generation before me, the system that went through that, the children that went through that came out void of a lot of important things. Generation after that, it prepared itself a little bit better, and other things happened to slow the society down in terms of drugs and crime. The rate went so high, they came out of that. The children came out of that ready for something different in terms of why I'm black and why I should be proud. But the system was saying, you're still going to have to adhere to our rules, but they don't fit for how I think and what I want to do.
Right.
And if you don't put your foot in that shoe, you're not going to be able to walk through the system that is geared toward you not getting ahead.
Yes.
Thereby, the criminal system is filled with us.
And that's a big problem.
That's a huge problem.
Right now with special education, it's been going on for decades, but it's a large problem now, what we call disproportionality. So we know that black and brown students, we're a minority, right? And when we look at schools overall, we're a minority. But when we look at special education, there are 2, 3, 4, 5 times as many children, or black and brown children in special education, than represent the whole population of schools.
Look at these stats.
And so
numbers don't
that's a problem,
Yeah.
right? But because, it's a quick fix to slap a child in special education, or to say, you don't learn the way Johnny learns, and so you must have some sort of issue. There must be something wrong with you, and so we need to put you over here. And a lot of times it's not appropriate because
hello, hallelujah.
So
you want to be alienated? Set aside from your friends and your age group, proceeding as you see them proceeding because you're slightly different from what the system thinks you should be.
Right.
You're going to be held back. Just because.
And it's a huge problem.
Is there a shift taking place? A positive shift taking place?
Yes. So thankfully, because it is such a huge problem, our governments are aware of it, and they're trying to put programs in place and educate educators so that we can so that we can recognize those cultural biases that are affecting us in the classroom and when we're dealing with students that make us say, you're a problem automatically, instead of dealing with them on their level, to recognize those economic disparities, or recognizing children that maybe they're hungry and that's why they can't participate in your class.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Implementing things to help students on a, just kind of a personal level, so that they can learn in the classroom, meeting them where they are, and taking a deeper look into how we're qualifying them for special education. Do they really qualify, or is there something cultural that's going on that we don't quite understand? Or have they just had poor instruction in the classroom and we're not getting it, and we're not looking deeper? So there's a lot of education going on, intentional education of our teachers, of our principals, administrators, so that we know how to meet students where they are.
Do you think that dynamic is taking place because we've been, as black people, been trying to do this ever since they brought us over here? But there seemed to be a barrier there, like, no, it's segregation, no, we got standards here, you're too short, you're too long. Other cultures, other people coming in from other parts of the world, thinking this quote-unquote United States is truly the United States and all they think it should be from what they've read, coming over here and experiencing what we experience, and they're being from a different culture are in a slightly different position to do something about it, so that the so-called system will say, yeah, we are America, and we are isolated, but yeah, we can do this because we, African Americans, haven't left to go see what's going on. Other cultures come and see what is going on and can say, maybe these black people over here aren't blowing smoke and just complaining because they're black.
Right.
Maybe something's wrong with the system. And then when they study and see something is wrong with the system because they're doing the same thing to my children, it becomes something everybody has to deal with instead of just us and them.
Yeah.
That's what I've been looking at over the past
You have a lot
decade.
of colleges and universities doing research on this very thing. How the disparities happen, how overrepresentation, happens, and where we can fix that. But where the roots are, and it takes a lot of collaboration between different cultures and, people that don't necessarily look like us, but that are allies for the movement of the greater good, because it benefits all students to have a quality education.
And if it benefits the students, benefits the country.
Right.
Benefits the country. Benefits the world.
That's it.
Dr. Watkins and he throws it out at me every now and then, how the system, the educational system, we don't see it. We had a means by which to do that, BET and so somebody else, and we could have done that through that medium. The opportunity was there. We just didn't take advantage of it, where it could be done on a broader scale instead of watching the cartoons that they watch and watching the movies that they watch. They could be watching what we need to be seen. And addressing that is through the educational process, and it is taking place. It's just that we don't have a medium by which we can impact every home with that reality. Because now I look at my little grandson; he's only 2 years old, but he sees these cartoons and he sees everybody of every ethnic group doing all kinds of things, and I'm just watching what he does and how he responds to things. He responds to his mom and his dad and the identity of who he is. All I had was Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and a whole bunch of folks
children are such sponges,
like
right?
they're sponges.
They take in everything that's in their environment. And so that goes back to parents and grandparents, everybody involved in raising that child, that we have to be on our game, like really intentional about what we do.
We do.
Because a child's going to suck everything up and learn everything that we do, whether we want them to learn it or not.
I see you going into the icebox. What's in there? I see you going under the cabinet looking for stuff. What's under there? He's everywhere in the house pulling out stuff, checking it out, And that's that educational process. They work for them. Like my father used to tell me, Harrison, babies are just little people.
That's right. Yes.
They don't know that they're sharp, and can't do certain things. They're going to try it, and thank God for teachers such as yourself and other people who have committed themselves to this. A turn can be made. A 180-degree turn can be made, but it has to have assistance in the whole process of the turning, especially when you're going from left to right or from right to left. The system has been contrary to us going ahead because of what you did. Now your children are waking up and seeing what you did, and they're resenting what you did to prevent other people from turning around. Are you going to show these children that it can be done, or are we going to have another problem? you know, it looks like we're going to probably have another problem, but that doesn't mean we need to get caught up in it.
And it's interesting with teachers. My husband's a teacher.
Oh, I didn't know your husband was a teacher also?
So my husband's a teacher.
Wow.
I'm a school psychologist, and we're an educational family.
Yeah.
But we're also parents. So
Yeah.
just because he's a teacher and I'm a school psychologist, we don't get it perfect.
Yeah.
But we try to still be intentional.
Yeah.
And still educate ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, and trying to bring what we do in our profession into our household. We don't always get it right. If you talk to my children, they'll probably tell you a whole lot. But we try to do our best, you know.
Do you ever reach a point where you just feel it's hopeless?
I don't think so. In the moment, sometimes, I mean, extremely frustrated. So both in my home as a parent, you know, because things get really real sometimes. And you get extremely frustrated, but not that it's hopeless, because, you know, you look at, I remember when I was a child, and when I was growing up, I went through a whole lot before I even got myself sort of together.
Sort of together.
I gave my parents a lot of problems. But
Yeah.
it turned out okay, and I'm still growing, you know. So I have to keep that same thing in mind for my own children. And then the children that I have a pleasure with interacting with in my profession too, that if they're given the right tools, they're going to be okay.
You
they're going to be
dig
okay.
a hole with a nail. You got to have a shovel.
Yeah.
You got to know how to make it.
Yeah, there's always hope though.
Oh, so when you have those hopeless moments, where do you turn?
I turn to God.
Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Since being a parent, my prayer life. Starting with the first one, my prayer life has just increased with each one because, you know, I just talk to Jesus in the car, talk to Jesus at home, because real life happens, you know.
Oh, yes.
And like Pastor said in his message today, if you can't talk to Jesus, who can you talk to? Because God knows everything, and He's got the solutions for it all. And He can keep me patient when I just want to just fly off, because, even though I do it for a living, it's real. And when you're a parent, it doesn't make it easier.
You go away from it when you leave the house. You do it as a parent, as an educated, trained person with a job, and you come back home, and it's with you again.
It does not.
It takes passion.
Yeah.
It takes passion. Yeah, it takes passion, and it takes patience. And without a creator, without someone to turn on, when you have no one else to turn to with some type of whatever it is, He's there for you each and every time.
That's right.
You know, and that's it's like He educates us, teaches us. Like He says in His Bible, if you come to me as a little child, I can help you. But if you come here to me with an ego and you think I don't know about it, then we have a serious problem. You know? And that's what we're dealing with in society now. You know, the serious problem is when, like the pastor was saying today, take it to Jesus. If all these
you have a little talk with Jesus.
Have a little talk with Him.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Jesus for a while. Let's talk to your God.
I was thinking, when Pastor was talking in his message, he said if we would just have a little talk with Jesus. And I was thinking, as I knew we were doing this today, if our educators, if our teachers would have a little talk with Jesus before you write a child off. Have a little talk with Jesus.
Yeah.
Because God gives you perspective that you may not have come in with.
Exactly.
Give you some insight on a child. I mean, I pray about my students all the time. When we have altar call and we're praying, I'm praying for my students all the time because it's amazing what these kids are going through at such a young age.
It really is.
Yeah.
And when you put things in perspective, and God tells you, come to me and talk to me about it, I can resolve the issues. And then we don't do that. We still call ourselves believers in God, and we read the Bible. But if it's like anything else, if you don't pay attention to the point where you carry it out, and others see how you carry out and all that problem, those other people seeing you or your children, they're going to follow suit. If they see you frustrated and always going to the cabinet, pulling out a Bible, sticking
they're watching.
They're Hey, it's the one of my son. So he did some music for me, and it's got all the great jazz musicians on it, and people that I don't have recordings on, I probably haven't heard too many times. I look and I said, man, how did you know that I was? said to myself, this boy is listening to me when I'm sitting up at night sometimes.
Right.
They're not sleeping. They're here too. What is dad like? What is mom like?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with everything else that you do. They're patterning their
right.
lives behind what you do.
That's right.
You know, you holler at your wife, grab her, or you slap her. They're watching. They're watching.
Everything.
And
And
it
they
affects them
mimic
to this day.
what we do.
They mimic it.
Yes.
Until someone
yes.
else shows them different.
That's
you
right.
know. And
Yeah.
without that avenue of knowing that there's someone who can make a difference, you live in a hopeless life. You know, you're following what the dope dealer says, you following what your boyfriend says.
Mm.
Make me happy, I'll make you happy. But will that make mom and dad happy? Well, you know, they don't talk and we don't do things as a family, so I kind of like do what I need to do.
Right.
And all that stems from poor education. It gets back to education. and
Yes.
training.
Yeah.
This
And if
is
we
what
don't,
you do.
the point that, to your point, that if we don't educate our students and give them those tools that they need and our children, then it leaves it open for somebody else.
There you go. That's
Yeah.
the open wound.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
I'm not, I can't cure it for you, but I put a Band-Aid on it. No, I want it cured.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, leave
No.
somebody that we don't, that maybe is not in line with,
That's right.
with what we wanted for them.
That's right.
But because we left that door open and we weren't intentional about
Yeah.
educating them the right way.
Yeah.
Somebody else,
Yeah.
the streets will,
That's true.
the police
Definitely do it.
will, like,
Police
you know,
will.
it's like,
Yeah.
you know.
Put a tag on them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but you're supposed to follow these things, you know. You send them off to church, you send them to school. Don't reprimand them, don't raise your voice, don't touch them, don't put your hands on them. Well, you tried that 20, 30 years ago, you know, and then that was like, people in the church had not a right, but to correct your child in something that was contrary to what we all knew they should or shouldn't be doing.
Mm.
We as church members trusted them enough to say, they're not going to harm them, they're going to do this with love. But if you don't, if you think someone else is going, you know, if we continue to ask someone else to do what needs to be done, we'll never do it.
Yeah.
And they're going to do it their way. We raise our children in our homes, at least for the first 7. If I were king, you know, somebody would be home for the first 7 years of that child's life. Mother or father, doesn't matter. Somebody got to be home with them kids for 6
When
or 7
it's
years.
possible. But I mean,
When
when you
it's
look
possible.
at real
The
life.
government
and-
has to say, we're going to donate, we're going to develop a program where this can happen for the 6 or 7
Well,
years.
that would be
too.
amazing.
Because if we don't, we'll see what's going to happen when we stop doing that.
Yeah.
You know, the children are running them off.
But even if that's not possible, where a parent can be home,
Mhm.
grandparents, involving grandparents, uncles and aunties and cousins, you know, the whole village involved
Whole
in
village.
giving these babies what they need.
That's right.
Yeah.
Take their grandparents down, they put them in a home. Back in the day, grandmama and granddaddy was either on the same block or in the same house or close,
Yeah.
but they're not there now. You know, so these children grow up, they're 15 and they're 10 years old. You know, you look at, what are you talking about? Where'd you get that word from? How did you want to wear this type of clothing? You know, where'd that concept come from? Well, I was watching such and such while you were doing something else. Well, you should have been with me watching such and such. You would, gas is $10 a gallon. You know, average car costs you $50,000. Both parents are working.